Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Mel. Thank you so much for joining me today for a book haul. So it's been a little while since I did a book haul, so I have quite a few books that I want to get through today. So I'm going to try and be reasonably quick. We'll see how we go. So I do actually have a Come Book Shopping With Me secondhand bookstore haul. I will link that in the description below. I think I bought about 5 or 6 books in there, but for this one I have 22 books, 4 of which are ebooks, and I will talk about those first so I don't forget about them, and then the rest are physical books. So the ebooks that I want to talk about today are Dawn by Octavia E. Butler. I bought this one because it was lent to me by a person who was briefly staying with us, but they've moved now, so I wanted to give them his book back. So I bought the book. I didn't unfortunately get a chance to read it. Anyway, it's on my e-reader now when I get a chance to get to it. This is the first in a science fiction series by Octavia Butler. I know almost nothing about it. I know that it is a alien space sci-fi series, and that's basically everything that I know. I did really enjoy the one other book by Octavia Butler that I have read, which was Kindred, and I'm excited to read more of her works. I'm a little bit intimidated by this one though because I don't read a huge amount of sci-fi, but anyway, at some point I will get to it. Hopefully I will enjoy it, and yeah, so that is the first book that I want to talk to you about today. The next one is When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain. So this one is the follow-on from The Empress of Salt and Fortune. I had mixed feelings about The Empress of Salt and Fortune. There were elements that I liked, elements that I didn't get along as well with. So you might be wondering why I bought The Tiger Came Down the Mountain, but I was intrigued enough to want to know how the story continued, but also, if I'm being very honest, it was also very cheap on my e-reader. So that might have been a contributing factor. So the first book is a fantasy, and it follows a priest, or sorry, a monk I should say, who is a scholar and is travelling around the country collecting stories, particularly about the royal family. It is about them going to an important place for the traditions and culture and history of the empire and getting a bunch of different stories about one particular empress from the royal family. It is very much inspired by Chinese mythology, and yeah, this one follows along, so that's all I'm going to say about that one. Then we have Storm and Fury by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I've been hearing so many things about Jennifer L. Armentrout, in particular the Blood and Ashes series. This one, again, was another book that was reasonably cheap on my e-reader, so I thought I'd like to give Jennifer L. Armentrout a shot. I don't really know a huge amount about this one. I haven't heard many people talk about this particular series. They usually talk about the other, but it sounded like it was quite interesting. It's a fantasy, young adult fantasy, probably a little bit of romance in there. That's basically all I know, so there you go. And then finally we have The Flames of Albion by Jean Menzies. Jean is of course the creator from Jean's Bookish Thoughts. She's a really popular, really influential booktuber and booktoker and probably bookstagrammer. All those different platforms. She is a fantastic content creator, and I was super excited when I found out that she had published this book. It's self-published. I'm actually reading it right now. I'm really enjoying it. It is an adult epic fantasy. It involves dragons. It involves a young woman who is an orphan and was raised by the university, and she basically becomes a dragon rider. That's as much as I've gotten out of it so far. I am about, I think, 20% into the book. Like I said, I'm really enjoying it. I think that it's a really fantastic read, and yeah, I'm excited to continue with it. So those are all of the ebooks that I wanted to show you today. Now I'm going to tell you about the books that I have purchased physically over the last few months. So like I said, I've already shown you the books that I got in that particular shopping trip. The rest have been books that I have purchased in a variety of different places. Mostly they are from secondhand bookstores, 2 different secondhand bookstores. I do also have a couple of books that were sent to me, so I'll show you those as well. So first up, I realised, because I am doing a buddy read of all of the Discworld novels by Terry Pratchett, I realised that I actually had some holes in my Pratchett collection. So I have remedied that. So I bought Pyramids by Terry Pratchett. This is a Discworld novel, and it is a comic fantasy retelling of Egyptian mythology. Then we have Eric. So I don't really know much about this one. This is one of his kids' Discworld books, but yeah, I wanted to get it because we are reading it and I needed to get all the Pratchetts. Then we have Men at Arms. This one is the second book in the Watch series. So if you know anything about the Discworld, you will know that the Discworld as a series, as a whole overarching world, has something like 50 books in it. Within the series there are miniature series that follow similar characters or follow, like this one follows the Watch. So yeah, this is the second Watch book because my partner Rowan is reading the Watch series at the moment, and somehow I didn't have Men at Arms. I don't know how, but now I do. Then another book that I bought to continue to own a series is the second Oathbringer book by Brandon Sanderson. Like I said, this is part 2. So I read The Way of Kings part 1 and 2 a while ago and I really enjoyed it. So I haven't continued. I will at some point, but I haven't yet. But I wanted to own the series. I do still have Rhythm of War to read, which was the most recently written of this series. This is the Stormlight Archives series, and yeah, really fantastic, high fantasy, very in-depth and really well written. So yeah, there's that one. The next book that I wanted to show you is The Yield by Tara June Winch. This is a book that is about two different characters. I'm sure there's other characters too, but two main characters. One is an older Aboriginal man who is determined to pass on the language of his people and everything that was ever remembered. So he's sort of, I don't know officially whether he's an elder, but sort of taking on the responsibility of an elder to preserve culture and language and history and heritage. And then the other character is his granddaughter, who when he dies returns to the land, returns to the community. It's about her trying to preserve her land, preserve her history and culture, and yeah, it sounds really interesting. I'm sure it will be very heartrending in a lot of ways, but I think it sounds really interesting, so there's that one. Then I have The Foundling by Stacey Halls. First of all, just that cover. Isn't that beautiful? Also, so is that one. So this is a historical fiction and we follow a woman called Clara who has an illegitimate child that she leaves with an orphanage, and then she goes back to claim the child, I think like a number of years later, only to be told that she already has. So it's basically her trying to figure out what on earth is going on and who has taken her child and why. It sounds really interesting. It sounds like it would be something that I will really enjoy. So yeah, I'm excited to read this one. Then we have a series, the Every series by Ellie Marnie. So they are Every Breath, Every Word, and Every Move. This is the first trilogy that we are reading as part of my book club that I run with Ellie from Earl Grey Books and Lana from Law and Lullabies. So this is the final books that we have to read this month in October. I, as of filming, have already read these two books. I really enjoyed them. They are really well written, really interesting, really fun. They are a young adult retelling of the Sherlock Holmes stories, or Sherlock Holmes kind of general underlying story, but they have a really interesting take. They're Australian, and I mean when I say retelling, they're kind of a retelling but kind of more just inspired by, but yeah, they're really interesting and I'm really enjoying them. Then we have two books that kind of go together but don't really. So we have Ariadne by Jennifer Saint and Law by Alexandra Bracken. So they go together in a sense because they're both Greek mythology retellings, although I have read this one and it is more of a sort of historical fiction retelling. So it is placing Ariadne in the time and place where the myths were placing her. So we follow Ariadne throughout her life as she manages how to deal with having a monster for a brother and a tyrant for a father, and yeah, all the stuff that happens to Ariadne. So I've already spoken about this in my fantasy wrap-up that would have gone up a few days ago, so I will link that in the description below if you'd like to hear more of my thoughts. And then lore actually takes place in modern day New York, so this is a retelling of the mythology surrounding Medusa, which is part of Greek mythology, but it is looking at it from a sci-fi fantasy perspective in the 21st century rather than placing it in time and place. I've heard really mixed things about this one. Some people have loved it, some people haven't, but I think it sounds really interesting and I'm super excited to get to it. Next up we have Elias Grace by Margaret Atwood. I've actually already watched the miniseries that is based on this book and I really enjoyed it, and so I saw this in a secondhand bookstore for $6.50, so I thought yes, I would like to have that book. So we follow it's historical fiction, it's set in the 1840s, and we follow Grace, who has been convicted of a murder, but did she commit it? Yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed the TV show, so I'm looking forward to reading the book. Next up we have The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary. I read The Flat Share last year and I really enjoyed it. I haven't yet got around to reading any more of her books, but I have really been interested in doing so. So when I saw this in a secondhand bookstore for $12, I snapped it up. I think it's a second chance romance. It follows, I think, a few people who end up, for I don't know what reason, but for some reason, having to share a car on a road trip to a mutual friend's wedding. But yeah, they haven't seen each other for a long time, and I think it's all about them reconnecting and possibly a romance. So yeah, sounds really great. I just love Beth O'Leary's writing style, so I'm looking forward to reading another book from her. Then we have After Story by Larissa Barrent. Larissa Barrent is an Aboriginal author and lawyer, and I have really enjoyed three of the books that I've read from her. I don't feel like I can really give you a synopsis of this book, so I'm just going to read the blurb to you. When Indigenous lawyer Jasmine decides to take her mother, Della, on a tour of England's most revered literary sites, Jasmine hopes it will bring them closer together and help them reconcile the past. 25 years earlier, the disappearance of Jasmine's older sister devastated their tight-knit community. This tragedy returns to haunt Jasmine and Della when another child mysteriously goes missing on Hampstead Heath. As Jasmine immerses herself in the world of her literary idols, including Jane Austen, the Bronte sisters, and Virginia Woolf, Della is inspired to rediscover the wisdom of her own culture and storytelling. But sometimes the stories that are not told can become too great to bear. Yeah, so it sounds like it's going to be really interesting, it's going to be really heartbreaking in some ways, and I'm really looking forward to it. Plus, again, beautiful cover. Alright, next up is The Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams. So this one is another historical fiction, and it is centered around the daughter of one of the people that created the Oxford English Dictionary, and it is about her sort of making sense of the world by collecting words that are lost or not specifically included in the dictionary. It says, over time, Esme realizes that some words are considered more important than others, and that words and meanings relating to women's experiences often go unrecorded. She begins to collect words for another dictionary, the Dictionary of Lost Words. I think this sounds really interesting. I have heard quite a few different people speak about how great this one is, and yeah, it just sounds like it's going to be right up my alley, so I'm super excited to read this one at some point. Next up is The Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. I bought this book because I wanted to join in Chloe from Chloe Reads Books Crime Scene Corner Book Club, and this is the book that we are reading in October. Yeah, I think it sounds like it's going to be really interesting. Not for the faint of heart, I don't think so. I'm not sure how I'm going to go with it, but it is a true crime, and we are following two characters who were part of the World Fair in 1893 in Chicago. One of them creates the White City, which was part of the World Fair, and the other one creates basically what is a murder hotel. So yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. Like I said, I don't know that it's going to be particularly easy to read, but fortunately I'm going to be reading it with a bunch of different people in the book club, so I'll have some moral support. Then we have The Bluffs by Kyle Perry. I love this cover as well. So this is a thriller mystery that's set in Tasmania, which is where I live, and it's somewhat rare to find a book from Tasmania, so I'm super excited about it from that point of view. My friend Michelle has read, I think, both of the thrillers by this author and absolutely loved them, so I think I will enjoy them as well. Group of teenagers go missing. 3 decades beforehand, 5 young girls disappeared as well. When a body is found mauled at the bottom of a cliff, suspicion turns to a wild animal, but that can't explain why she was discovered barefoot, her shoes at the top of the cliff, laces neatly tied. So yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting and thrilling and just a great read. So yeah. Then we have Honeybee by Craig Silvey. I read Jasper Jones by Craig Silvey quite a while ago now, and I really enjoyed it. Again, this is another book that Michelle recommended to me. It's about a young man and an older man, both of whom are drawn to a bridge at night, potentially to not end well, but they form a connection, and it's about that and about the connection and how that sort of explains what's happening. And yeah, that's a really bad explanation, but sounds really interesting and I am very intrigued to read it. Alright, so next up we have 2 books which I bought because this is one of my favourite TV shows of all time. So I saw these 2 books in a secondhand bookstore and I had to grab them. So we have 2 Firefly books. We have Generations and Life Signs. From the way the covers go, I am assuming that this is about River Tam and this is about Inara. So yeah, this one follows an adventure to do with River, and this one follows an adventure to do with Inara and what happens when she leaves Serenity. If you have seen Firefly, that would not be even slightly a spoiler. So yeah, I absolutely love Firefly. It's one of my favourite TV shows, so I'm super excited to read these. And then we have this book here, The Winter Queen by Boris Akunin. This is a bit of a funny one. This was put into my letterbox with no note, just a random book in my letterbox. It turns out it was from our next door neighbour who knows that I'm a big reader, and she read it and she thought it was great and she thought I might enjoy it, so she put it in the letterbox. She did think she'd put a note in there, but anyway. So it's a historical fiction set in Moscow and it is a crime story. That's about all I know, but yeah, it sounds interesting, so at some point I will give it a try. Then I have Heidi by Joanna Spiri. You guys would have seen this one quite a while ago in my 12-hour reading challenge. I am collecting these Puffin and Bloom editions. I think they are just beautiful. So I now own Heidi and Anne of Green Gables. There's also Little Women and The Little Princess, which I really want to get at some point as well. So this follows a young girl, a young orphan girl in Switzerland who is taken to live with her grandfather who lives really high up one of the Alps, and it's about her growing up and what happens to her. It is a children's classic. It's absolutely beautiful, and so is this edition, so I'm really excited that I own it. And finally, we have 2 books that were gifted to me by Lana from Lore and Lullabies. So thank you so much again, Lana. First of all, she sent me a book because, as you guys know, I do my roll of reads every month, and she really liked it and she wanted to pay me for the cards so she could do her own roll of reads, and I said no, you don't need to do that, but we agreed that she would send me a book in lieu of payment. So she sent me Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. I don't know much about this one, but I know that it is a middle grade fantasy. I have heard absolutely nothing but fantastic things about this. This has been blowing up all over the place on YouTube, BookTube I should say, and yeah, everyone really loves it. Lana really enjoyed it and I'm super excited to get to it. I've actually been saving it for a Believathon, so I'm definitely going to read that in November. And then finally, Lana also sent me Heirs of Power by Kay MacLeod. This is the first book in the Constellation saga. So as you guys may know, I was the team leader for contemporary, historical and literary fiction for the India Chords readathon in July. Lana sent all of us team leaders a book to say thank you, and this is the one that she chose for me. I am really excited about this one because it sounds fantastic, but also Kay MacLeod is the sister of Kaz from Cats and Camera here on BookTube. Kaz has talked about her sister's books quite a few times on her channel. I've always thought they sounded interesting, particularly this series, so I've always wanted to get my hands on them, and now I have one which I'm super excited about. So it's a fantasy and it's about a woman who discovers that she has kind of superpowers, and yeah, it goes from there. So I'm super excited to get to this one. So thank you again, Lana, for this book. Okay guys, thank you so much for sticking through that very, very long haul video. As you can see, I had quite a few books to get through. I'm actually currently sort of on a book buying ban. I'm going to go into more details about how that's going to work because, like I said, it's sort of, so it's not just a straight, you can't buy books for this many months, but it was a deal that I worked out partly with my partner Rowan and partly with my friend Michelle. So both of us are on a book buying ban of sorts. So I'm going to go into more detail in another video with her because we're both doing slightly different things. So I think that will be an interesting video. I'm not sure when that will go up, but it will go up probably sometime this month. Anyway, keep your eyes out for that. But yeah, if you have any of these books, if you've read any of these books, if you intend to read any of these books, please comment all that below and let me know. I would love to chat with you about your opinions or your theories about any of these things. If you'd like to leave me a comment but you don't know what, then leave me the stack of books emoji because once again I have a giant stack of books. All of my social media details are listed in the description below, so if you'd like to go and follow me on any of those other platforms, please feel free to do so. Thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would absolutely love it if you would subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. And yeah, like I said, thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you next time.